Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Heal Your Mind, Heal the World podcast. My name is Anne Marie Morales. And today I am kind of geeking out a little bit because I have a really spectacular hypnotherapist with me today. His name is Steve Burgess. He is known for past life regressions, some extraordinary work that he does in the realm of the past life of the individual, of the clients. And he is also the author of 3 published books and has one on the way. And so without any further ado, I welcome Steve to the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
I am very appreciative. And as I was getting ready to meet with you here, I just kind of went, oh, girl, you reached out to somebody and they said yes. And I'm just really so thankful that you would take the time to do this for someone. I really thank you for that.
Thank you. One of my missions on earth, I believe, honestly, without sounding too pretentious, I hope, is to get regression therapy more well known, more accepted as a credible therapy. And also to get past life regression more well understood so that people realize that it isn't just some sort of woo-woo, silly belief system, that actually regression therapy, past life regression, in my opinion, is the deepest form of therapy that there is on the planet. So I'm really happy to be with you and to share some of my experiences.
Well, like I said, I am so thrilled that you are here. And I did come across you in a couple of places online, a couple of interviews, because I do this work myself. I am a professional hypnotherapist. And I just started to, first of all, you have the most beautiful voice, and I'm sure you hear that all the time.
I just think I'm boring. I just sound boring, but people say it's so comforting.
Darling, your voice has been whispering in my ear overnight.
Wonderful.
And it is very pleasant. Yes. And I've been really enjoying not only your interviews, and just before we hit record, you mentioned that you were on a very popular podcast, one of which I found you on. I searched for you and I saw that you were on, and it's called Wisdom from the North. Beautiful Norwegian based spiritual minded podcast, which I encourage everyone to check out. What did you just tell me about that?
Well, I mean, quite incredibly, I appeared on Wisdom from North just over 2 years ago, and today it actually passed 500,000 views, which is just extraordinary as far as I'm concerned. You know, over 500,000 views. And I always say I'm just a jobbing therapist. You know, that's all I am. I'm just a jobbing therapist. Yes, I've got a lot of experience, but to have that many views for tens of thousands of people around the world listening to my stories and about the stuff that I do, it just takes my breath away. It really does, and I can't believe it. I mean, I've done a few good interviews over the years with quite a lot of views, but nothing in nothing in that league. It was just amazing. So I'm really shocked and stunned still.
Well, I think it's just a reflection of the awakening of humanity's consciousness to the fact that we're not just bodies, that we're not just this body, right? I mean, we are not bodies, we are consciousness, and that consciousness has existed for eons and centuries in many different iterations. And I just find it beautiful. And I really believe in this profession so very much. Can you tell us, how did you end up becoming a hypnotherapist?
It was completely by accident. My father stopped smoking at 34 years ago by using hypnotherapy. And he couldn't understand why this had worked, because my father's a scientist by profession. And he tried many ways to stop smoking. Nothing had worked. He went to see a hypnotherapist who laid him in a comfortable chair, relaxed him down, used post-hypnotic suggestion therapy, which is to feed the subconscious with positive suggestions about being a non-smoker. And my dad didn't want cigarettes anymore, and it just didn't make sense to his scientific brain. So he started to get interested, started to read up about hypnosis. And the more he read, the more fascinated he became. Eventually, he went and trained to be a hypnotherapist and just started practicing at home privately with family and friends. And people would be referred to him, friends of friends, etc. So I was a director of a publishing company at that stage, and it went bust and took some of my money with it. So my dad said, "Why don't you look at being a hypnotherapist?" So, okay, probably better than working for a living. So let's see what happens. And I was very lucky in that it was like coming home actually to something that I should have done some time earlier, because I do believe, as you know, and I train therapists around the world, that some people are natural therapists in the same way that some people are natural doctors or natural nurses. Some people are just natural therapists, and it was just like coming home for me. So, and that was really how it started. And you talk about the Great Awakening and how this is going on. I've been doing this 33 years, and 33 years ago, I had to justify to virtually every client that hypnotherapy worked. Nowadays, nobody ever asks. Everybody knows it works. And then I started doing regression therapy a little while after that. And again, for years, I had to justify regression therapy works. Nowadays, everybody knows, and not everybody, that's an exaggeration, but more and more people understand that past life is a real process, that reincarnation is a fact, not some weird Eastern belief system. And so that, again, is a measure for me of how the world has changed, especially in the last 20 years.
Wow, I agree with you 100% on the concept of coming home to something that you always thought or that you never knew you should be doing. I feel now I'm a Jane of all trades. I've done just about every kind of job and medical field, a Wall Street secretary, and then a professional soprano, and then also I was an art teacher for almost 18 years. I was an elementary art teacher, and doing this work, it just brings me such joy and satisfaction. And so I'm totally so with you on that.
Yeah.
Now you are particularly focused on the past life regression. Can you say a little bit about what came? See, because I believe that everything is divinely planned, that there are no mistakes, and that you are absolutely meant to do this work. So how did it unfold for you? At what point did you say, wow, this is where it really resides? This is where I can do the best good. So explain that.
What actually happened is I was working as a hypnotherapist, just using post-hypnotic suggestion therapy, what I call basic hypnotherapy, and visualizations and metaphors, and doing some NLP work, etc. And then maybe a couple of years in, maybe not that long, a young fella came to me with a severe anxiety state, and he was in his early 20s. And as he sat in front of me in my office, he was shaking and hyperventilating. It was actually probably the most severe anxiety state I've ever seen in all the thousands of sessions that I've done. And he said, tell me about the anxieties. I asked him, the questions. And so he said, well, I've always been a worrier, but over the last few years, it's got worse and worse and worse. Now I can't work. I've had to give my job up. I'm shaking all the time. I don't sleep. I'll sit at home shaking. Doctors giving me medicine, nothing's working. In fact, a lot of it makes me worse. And as we know, so much modern medication makes anxieties and things like that worse. He said, my wife's sick of it. She said to me, if I don't get this sorted, she'll divorce me. She can't take any more. We've got a couple of young kids. And he said, it started to get worse when the children came along. That's when it really got bad. And it's just, and all the time, Anne-Marie was sitting shaking, and he couldn't make eye contact. So I said, okay, well, we'll do a bit of trance work. And I just guided him into trance using, he just rested back and I guided him softly, talked to him, and he relaxed beautifully. Within minutes, he was laid in the chair, completely calm. And I thought, oh, this is good. I'm on a winner here. And, it's my early days, so I'm reading a script about relaxing to him. And then all of a sudden, after about 10 minutes, suddenly he became very anxious in the chair. His whole body stiffened and he started to half whisper and half shout in the middle of the session. He's in trance, he's in deep trance. And he started to say, no, 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 hide. Quickly, they're coming. They're coming, hide. Bring the children in here. Shush, shush, shush. Shh. Quiet, 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 quiet. And then suddenly he began to writhe and scream and yell, no, not the children, no. Yeah. And he just flopped down in the chair.
Oh, wow.
And I went, what the? He was completely calm. So I said, what's happening? How do you feel? He said, I feel wonderful. I feel absolutely wonderful. I feel, I said, I have never felt this calm in my life before. I said, what was happening? He said, it was weird. It was like I was in another body, in another time. I was a man and I was trying to hide the family. Soldiers were coming looking for us, Nazis, and they found us and they shot us and killed us all. What was that about? So obviously I knew about past lives. Of course, I've been a Buddhist for many years before I became a therapist, but I hadn't trained in past life work. In fact, in the early 90s in the UK, hardly anybody was even looking at this, any therapists. So I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel amazing, absolutely calm. So I said, obviously you've been in a past life. Well, that's fine. So we finished the session. His anxiety state was cured in 15 minutes. And it just hit me in the face, Anne-Marie. I thought, I need to know about this. So I started to get information about past life regression therapy, started to work with it. And then over the years, I run past life regression group workshops for people to gain more experience. But I've now created a regression system of my own that I train therapists around the world in, which is a regression system which isn't just about past lives, because I like to emphasize this. So, I mean, the new book, The Adventures of a Hypnotherapist, that I wrote, it features in regression into this life. And most people, if not everybody, has got emotional baggage from this life into past lives, and also ancestral regression, because we can inherit trauma from our ancestors in our bloodline. And that also needs to be cleared in the same way. So
I love how you just mentioned that, because I'm not just a hypnotherapist. I'm also an intuitive energy healer as well. And I use that in loose quotations because we don't have another word for it. I don't know what else to call myself. Yeah. But I just had a client recently who had 2 chakras that held feminine trauma, ancestral feminine trauma. And I just made a post about it on my TikTok channel, because really they just want honor. That's what came across to me. Would you, what is your reflection on that?
I think there's 2 aspects to this, to the healing process with this, Anne-Marie. First of all, the regression model is that all of our issues as human beings come from locked in feelings and emotions from past traumas. That's the regression model. So every issue that we have in our lifetime, whether it's a physical issue or a depression or an anxiety or a lack of confidence or a relationship issue or a sexual issue or a cancer or whatever, all of these issues at heart are caused by locked in traumas from the past. If we can release the trauma, which means releasing it by reliving it, which isn't fun, but it releases the energy, and people often cry or shake, but it releases the energy and they get better. That's the primary way in which regression heals. However, sometimes we need to get an understanding from the past, and that also can be a healing as well. If somebody, let's say, if they have a difficult relationship with a mother, And that's why they come for therapy. And then we found that in a past life, the client had killed her mom. Well, no wonder her mom doesn't like her very much, because she killed her in a past life. And that understanding often is enough to heal the issue. But with ancestral trauma, often we also need to do an extra, what could you say, an extra aspect of healing, which is to honor the ancestor and thank them for being an ancestor, thank them for being in our line, thank them for the gifts that they've given us as ancestors. And sometimes, very occasionally, if that ancestor has died in a difficult way or they've never been found, we can imagine burying the bones of the ancestor in sacred ground. And that sometimes also heals the ancestral trauma. So you're quite right. There's another tangent there very often with ancestral healing.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you so very much for sharing that. And I think it is a beautiful way to honor these energies that still need that. They still need that.
One of the great things about ancestral trauma, especially if it's a recent ancestor, like a parent or a grandparent that we're releasing and working on, when the client after the session will go home and they will, let's say they've worked on their grandmother's childhood trauma or something, and they'll go home and they'll say to the mom, I've worked on grandma's stuff today, and the mom will say, how did you know that? She never told anybody that. So often my client will relive something that was not known. And that sort of validates very much that what they've experienced is very real.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. I mean, my belief in our consciousness is, and I'm hoping it's similar to yours, and I'd like to get your take on it, is that the subconscious mind is almost like, the ego's big hard drive. It's just us, just us as this iteration of you of Steve and me as Anne Marie. Then we have the conscious realm, which is what we're interacting in right now. But then that super conscious realm is everything and everyone. And that's like the past, the present, the future. You have had an experience in the past few years. This is another reason why I really want to talk to you about not just being human. And could you talk a little bit about what you have encountered in your practice surrounding lives on other planets?
Yeah. What used to happen very occasionally is in a past life regression session, I would have a client who would go into a past life, a non-human past life, as an extraterrestrial. And that occasionally happened. The extraordinary thing, though, is that 2 years ago, client after client after client after client, for week after week after week, month after month, started to relive past lives as extraterrestrials on other planets. And it wasn't just happening for me, it was also happening for my team as well, because I have a team of therapists, so I pass work to when I'm very busy. And they were finding the same. And it was so odd that it was happening. And I'm always adamant that we don't lead our clients. In regression, the client comes through with the stuff all by themselves. A client doesn't come to me and with headaches. And I say, but I can see in the 15th century you were axed to death in a battle in Madagascar. No, I don't know. The subconscious knows. So we let the subconscious guide us to the information, and it comes through spontaneously. So we were not leading our clients, but time after time. And the first time it happened in a big way at that time, 2 years ago, was a client who I have in France. I do all my work online nowadays. The sessions work even better online than they do in-house. So I'm happy working around the world nowadays online. And she was a client in Paris, in France. And she was trying to develop a new business, but she said, I keep getting knocked back all the time. I'm just getting knockbacks. It's as if I'm blocked in some way. And as you know, regression is wonderful for unblocking stuff. It's like a mental enema. It really does unblock so wonderfully well. And so I thought, okay, well, and a subconscious said, well, we'll do some regression. Now, part of my regression technique is to use what's called an ideomotor response, which is where the client in trance, I ask their subconscious to take control of a finger, perhaps, and the finger just moves all by itself. And that movement becomes a yes. So if I ask my client subconscious a question, it wants to say yes. And my belief, just going back to your earlier point, my belief is that we all have a higher self. I believe the subconscious is our higher self. So it is this awesomely wise thing. And I asked the subconscious about the blockages that we needed to work on. When she was in trance, I asked the subconscious, and I asked about any traumas in this life or any past lives or any ancestors' lives that we would need to work on to unblock her. And it just said no. Oh, that's unusual. So I then asked, are there any spirit attachments here? Because very occasionally we find that a client has a spirit attachment that can block them. No. Are there any extraterrestrial connections here? And the finger just didn't go like that. The whole arm shot up in the air. Whoosh. Right. And the next thing, she's connecting to, in her mind, she moved out from away from Earth. And she said, I'm imagining like there's a group of about 12 elders. They're all sitting around me. And they're all saying, where have you been? We've been waiting for you. And she said, these are my people. And they're not from here. They're from another place, another star system, and we didn't find out where. And what happened in that session, she started to download stuff from them. She said, it's like I'm getting downloads all the time. And that was the therapy. So she'd connected to these home beings, I call them. And after that, for weeks afterwards, they started to give her subconscious information. That was unblocking her. So the blockage was the fact that she'd been stuck down here in a human body, disconnected from her home beings, and therefore they needed to reconnect with her so that now she can flow so much more readily. And time after time, Anne-Marie, clients are reporting these off-planet experiences. A client a few weeks ago, a lady who she was in another planet, very tall blue beings. She was in a female, very tall body, and it was very blue planet. She said there's blue everywhere. And she said, we can move all over the place. And everything's telepathic, of course. And we do come down to Earth, but when we come back home, we have to clean ourselves because the energy down there is so grotty. And she said, we then go in these beautiful blue lakes to actually cleanse ourselves of the energies. And because it was happening like a trend for those month after month, I realized that something significant was happening. And so I started to do a bit more digging around. And of course, I then read Dolores Cannon's New Earth, I think the book is. And Dolores Cannon found exactly the same. She was just a normal regression therapist for all her career. And then suddenly, time after time, clients were having off-planet experiences. And that led her to create her different style of regression therapy. So what I've sort of come to the thought process is that this word of starseed comes up. And my belief, and it is only a belief because I can't prove it, but my belief is that there are people who are down here on planet Earth who have connections from other planets, from other star systems. And by being here on Earth, their role at the moment is to help bring down the energies, those lighter, higher energies here on Earth. And it's almost like until they know that, they're like a candle that has not been lit. But once they're aware of that, and they don't become egotistical, I'm an extraterrestrial, it's not like that. It's as if we light the candle, and therefore they have a strong connection with those higher energies. And it also makes sense to a lot of the clients because in most cases, they've struggled to fit in the lives down here on Earth. And, I tend to say, look, you've come from a higher place and you've been sent down to planet asylum into all the effing madness that goes on down here. And, you can't understand it. It doesn't make sense. So part of the healing is that they start to realize, well, that's no wonder I've struggled all my life. I am different, not in a weird way, but it's almost now that their candles are lit and they are transmitting out into the collective here on Earth those higher energies, which my belief is are contributing to the Great Awakening.
Yes, I'm exactly with you on that. And thank you so much for sharing that amazing story. And what I think is beautiful, and before I say the next thing, are you still encountering that, or has that kind of slowed down?
It's slowed down. It
It
has slowed
did.
down. It's every few weeks now. One
Okay.
client every few weeks.
And so this goes again to how nothing is ever a mistake, and that was just like a learning experience for you, much like your very first client that popped into this past life out of nowhere.
Yes.
I love that because it just shows how beautifully guided we all are and how our worlds, our universes, YOU universes, arranges everything for our best and highest good, even if it is a little bit difficult every now and then. I know that I'm a star seed. I actually know I have aspects of my soul that are from other planets, and they gave me a modality that I'm offering people too. It's called a StarSeed Special. But that's beautiful. I'm just so excited to hear that coming from you. That's done so much work over these years because you bring us a big perspective in terms
I've
of
been around a long time. I have been around.
yeah.
I've done over 15,000 therapy sessions. I mean, I really have been around a long time and seen lots of extraordinary things. And yet, even do you want to know the latest stuff, even the newest stuff that's been
Yes,
happening?
absolutely. Absolutely. Please share.
So this is an even more bizarre experience, I think. And I have a very dear hypnotherapy friend in Ireland, and she contacted me a year or so ago, a couple of years ago, I can't remember, to say that she just got a new dog, and it was a rescue dog. And she said, the dog, I believe, is very special. Now, Michelle is a beautiful spiritual soul. And when she was in New Zealand, she used to live in New Zealand, she had a dog which she felt was an old soul. And it was, I call them spiritual dogs. And it was special. It knew things. It had been around a long time. She even used to have it in her therapy room when she was doing client sessions because she felt it brought something, a different or a higher energy in. And she said, now I'm in Ireland, I bought this dog. And she said, I think this dog is special. And we get on so well, but she's an absolute pain in the backside. She said she won't behave as we want her to do. She's at my feet all the time. She's very insecure. And she said, well, look, I've been in touch with an animal seer in New Zealand. And this animal seer claims to have contacted the dog telepathically, and the dog told her that there was some past life stuff and some this life stuff that needed to be worked on. So Michelle said, well, do you think it would be possible for you to hypnotize me for the dog?
Oh,
So I said,
wow.
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it sounds a bit outrageous. In fact, I know it's outrageous, but I said, I honestly don't know. I mean, obviously, I can't hypnotize the dog. Well, I can. We can hypnotize animals, but trying to regress them, you don't know what on earth's going on. So I said, why don't we have a bash? So we did a regression session, and the dog was in a different part of the house, so wasn't listening to this. The door was closed. Michelle went into trance, and she went into one of the dog's past lives where they went back into the Second World War, where Michelle saw herself as a male Nazi prison guard in a prison camp. And he had a dog, which was the guard dog, which was obviously the dog now. And all day long, they spent all day long being nasty to the inmates and, walking around the wire fences and checking that nobody was escaping. And it was a horrible experience. And at some stage, this young man, as Michelle was in the past life, had had enough of it, and he just thought, this is wrong. It was just evil what the Nazis were doing. So he helped some of the prisoners to escape. He got found out, and immediately the Nazis just shot him and killed him, or killed her, you could say. And of course, that meant that the dog, which had spent 24 hours a day for many months with this person, was now bereft. It had lost its owner. It was absolutely bereft. And that was the trauma. So we worked through that and finished the session. And Michelle was quite gobsmacked, as we say, up where I come from in the north of England. She was amazed. And I saw her then a couple of weeks later for another session, and she said there's been a significant improvement in the dog's behavior, a significant improvement. Her and her boyfriend said that she is so much more calm. And she said when she stopped being at my feet all the time, she said the number of times I'd be in the kitchen and I'd turn suddenly in the kitchen, I'd fall over the dog because she was there at my feet. She said, now, the last couple of weeks, she's just been sitting in the doorway, watching me. So we did another session, another past life. This time, they were both extraterrestrials, and they were on a spacecraft, on a mission. They came back to their home planet, to their home city, and as they docked, there wasn't not a being in the city. It was completely deserted. And so they're walking around, her and the dog. Obviously, the dog wasn't a dog in the past life. It was an extraterrestrial. And they couldn't see anybody. And suddenly some weird green gas came out from somewhere and asphyxiated them both and killed them both. It was like that was an entity of some sort, So we worked on that. Michelle said at the end, after that session, when I saw her a couple of weeks later, she said that night, the dog, after our session, I went downstairs and she was so joyful. Me and my boyfriend, we've never seen her being so joyful. So we did a few sessions where we, again, some this life trauma where the dog was hit with an axe or something. And it's just, she said the difference is extraordinary in the dog's behavior. And in fact, I stayed in Ireland with Michelle last year with my fiance, and what a beautiful dog, so well behaved. You would never have believed that this dog had problems. So that, I thought, okay, so I started to call this surrogate regression, which is where we work on one person for somebody else. Now, surrogate work is known in Reiki or in kinesiology and things like that, but it's not known in regression therapy. So me and my team now have been practicing, experimenting with it for the last couple of years, getting extraordinary results. I have a client who's a dentist in California, and we've done surrogate regression for her two sons. They have both seen significant improvements in their behaviors and the reduction in their anxieties. I have a client, a lady in the east of the USA, and her 11-year-old son has been having problems, anxiety-based problems, and every night when he went to bed, he was worried that he was going to wet the bed, and he was always talking about wetting the bed. We did one regression session into one of his past lives, which was not a nice past life. It was a horrible death in the past life, a horrible trauma, sorry, in the past life. And she said, he's a different lad already. She said, I can't believe the difference. She said, I'm waiting for him to turn back to how he was. She said, now he goes to bed on a night without a problem. He never mentions the worry about peeing, etc., etc. So it looks like we've fallen upon a very significant healing tool, because what this means is that, I mean, okay, I do regression with children, but usually a child, if they regress into a past life, they just get a fantasy past life. They don't get that real trauma, and that does heal them. But this means that a significant other can actually do work on a child or somebody else who can't do therapy in order to heal them. And it's working.
I tell you, this is something that I've never heard of in this form. And I am pretty stunned. I can just see how beneficial this is
the implications are extraordinary. I mean, think about a baby, a
Of
baby that comes
course.
in with eczema, let's say. And you could say, well, why has the baby got eczema? In my world, all skin problems come from locked in anger. And so,
Mm,
well, why would a baby be angry? Well, it's brought the trauma in from a past life, but a baby can't verbalize that. But mummy can regress back for the baby into the traumas in the past and heal the baby. So it's just it's almost mind blowing. And as I say, me and my team have been experimenting with it, but I would say about 80% of cases, it is very successful.
wow, this is really incredible. Thank you for sharing that on this podcast. I
It's
have
real
not
cutting
heard
edge
it
stuff.
before. I've
Yeah,
never heard it before, not even
absolutely.
on what you've done. Maybe I've missed it, but wow, what a fantastic thing.
Mm.
Yes, I'm part of a beautiful, I learned my hypnosis in a beautiful community, the Institute for Interpersonal Hypnotherapy, and I work with them as a, community kind of leader.
Mm.
And we meet regularly and we discuss things. And I can't wait to share this with everybody in the Institute because
Mm.
this is right up our alley. And yes, oh my goodness, this is extraordinary.
Mm.
This
It
is
really is.
extraordinary. My head is
It's
going like this. I'm like, my
yeah.
God, I can call my friend and talk to them about their. And let me ask you then another thing about this. What about, let's say, individuals who have had, let's say, they either have some sort of condition that has rendered them uncommunicable,
Mm.
unable to communicate. Whether have you worked in this realm
No,
yet?
not
No,
yet. No,
not
no.
yet.
It's still early days, but
Okay.
I'm sure it will happen. And I don't see why it shouldn't work in that case. I really
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because all issues are caused by emotional traumas in the past. If we can
Mm-hmm.
open the traumas up, then the issue begins to heal and is allowed to heal. And
Right.
if the surrogate work can work for dogs, it can work for most people.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure. And
This thing about the pets is also so significant.
very much
So
so.
very, very, very significant. Boy, I tell you, this is really
Mm.
groundbreaking. Thank you for sharing this with us.
It
Wow.
really is. I mean, I've not written about it in any big way. I've talked about it a little bit. I've done an interview with one of my team on my YouTube channel about it, just to get it
Mhm.
out there a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think any other regression therapists in the world are working in this way, and it just is extraordinary. So,
Well,
okay, there are some reasons why it may not work. Obviously, the person who is being the surrogate, who is being hypnotized, needs to be pretty good at hypnosis. As a rule,
correct.
they
Mhm.
need to be close to the person. Um, they need to be doing it from a heartfelt perspective, not because they want to manipulate the other person. Can you imagine a husband saying, well, I want to work on this so that my wife changes? But also, there is this thought that perhaps there should be a degree of permission as well, so that the person who's having the work done for them, there should be permission. But having said that, how do you ask a dog or a baby if that's okay? So for me, that's a bit of a grey area. I think the
Mhm.
most important thing is if you're working with your heart and you want to help somebody to get better,
Mhm.
for me, the permission thing is secondary. But there are other people who would think differently, and I respect that.
No, fair enough, fair enough. And I've encountered this in other work too, like um entity attachment removal. And below, people who love other people say, listen, he's got something on him and he doesn't believe it. How
Yeah.
can I help him? And I'll
Mhm.
do something similar to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because, if someone's drunk and they've got their keys in their hands, you don't let them go into the car. You grab the keys out of their hands
Good point.
because
Yeah.
the truth
Yeah.
that it's really for their best and highest good.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you there 100%. Wow, that is just so fascinating. Thank you. I really want to touch upon some of the clients that have come up with such stunning recollections of the past. And this is something that I know you've written books upon. And uh, because some of us, I've heard from other people, oh, yeah, everybody thinks they're Cleopatra. Everybody thinks they're Mark Antony or Alexander the Great. But you have come across some real humdingers, as they were, right? Can you
Yeah,
talk a
yeah.
little bit about that and talk to us about your books too? I know that's part of
Okay.
one of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I always say this, for 10 years, my first 10 years of my career, um, every single past life session, the client was just a normal person in the past life. They were a soldier, a peasant, a shopkeeper, a housewife, whatever, whatever. And whenever I heard anybody say that in a past life I was somebody famous, and they always say Cleopatra, I used to think, well, they're just being egotistical, because it's just ego. Because in many, many hundreds of sessions at that stage, or thousands, I never have a single famous one. And then one day that all changed when a lady who came to me for therapy, and it was a strange situation. She was working in an office, and somebody passed her a file in the office. It was a man who worked in the office who was a sort of a friend in the office. They got on well. They was not in relationship. As he passed her a file, their hands touched, and immediately she got an electric shock going through her body, and she got this image in her mind's eye immediately of a woman with long reddish coloured hair and a big old dress. And she got this feeling of frustration. She was so frustrated. And she said, I can't get this image and this feeling out of my mind. She said, it's been a week now. And all the time I'm frustrated. All the time. I can't, what's going on? She said. So I made sure that she hadn't been drinking too much vodka when it happened, and she hadn't. So it was something else. I said, it could be past life. Come and see me. She went into a past life. We talked about it. I guided her into trance, took her back to this image of this woman. And she then found herself as the woman in this big long dress in an old oak paneled room hundreds of years ago, pacing up and down the floor, waiting for somebody to come in sheer frustration. Where is he? Where is he? As she laid in my chair in the reclining chair in trance, her fingers were strumming on the arms of the chair. She was just, where is he? And the next thing, a man walks in the room, opens the door, and he's dressed very ornately. And they rush into each other's arms, and it's all huggy, huggy, and kissy, kissy stuff. And I thought, okay, well, it's a standard past life then. She's been waiting for the man. And this man, obviously the lovers. Well, okay, nothing out the ordinary there. Let's go a bit further on in the life. Go to the next significant part. And she then saw herself sitting on a throne with hundreds of people looking at her. And a man came over and bowed and said, Your Majesty, to her. And immediately my ears pricked up. I thought, oh, what's this? Maybe a minor royal somewhere. We continued doing a bit more work, and it appears that she was Queen Elizabeth I, who lived obviously in England in the 1500s. Now, I'm very skeptical. I talk about all this weird stuff, but I am very discriminating, so I'm not somebody who just goes off on clouds and weirdo stuff all the time. So I thought, okay, so she came out of trance, and she went, was I really Queen Elizabeth? Well, it's come through. Let's follow it up. So we did quite a lot more sessions. And she appears to be the reincarnation of Queen Elizabeth I. And the man was Queen Elizabeth's lover, Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester. And basically in our sessions, she put flesh on the bones of their love affair. So the love affair is well known, but we got a lot more detail of the love affair, including, and it is well known that Dudley at some point, Robert Dudley, proposed marriage to her. And she had to say no because she was a member of royalty. He was just a member of nobility. And she finished the relationship, and that broke Elizabeth's heart. And in the therapy session, when this happened, she was sobbing and sobbing because, Elizabeth knew it had to stop. And that really broke her heart. And then, so we did more sessions. And one session, Elizabeth, she found out that Robert Dudley was dead, that he died, later on. And in that session, she was bereft. She was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And it's actually, and she said, I just closed myself in my room and locked the door. I don't let anybody in. It's known for, I think, for days, Elizabeth actually did that. She just sat sobbing in her room for days, and my client experienced that. And then she said, I've got his last letter to me. I'm sitting looking at his last letter that he wrote me. And I'm just sitting looking at it and I'm just crying and crying. She said, what I do, I fold it up and I hide it in the back of a box that I've got. And I put it at the back of the box so nobody can find it. That box does exist and that letter does exist. How does my client know that? She'd never studied the period of history. A bit later on, I then did some sessions with a client who appears to be, excuse me, the reincarnation of Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, who was Queen Elizabeth's elder sister. And that particular client, the specific, detailed historical information that she came up with in the sessions, I had to go to history books and find that everything she said was there. There is no way on this earth that she would have known that detail. She'd never studied it. She was a housewife from Middle England. For me, these sort of things, when this information comes through that is true, that the client wouldn't have heard or seen anyway, these are real reincarnational experiences. So ever since then, I've had other clients who have come, who appear to be famous in past lifetimes. And again, I put them through hell because I'm very skeptical. So, but time after time, the specific information comes through. And at the moment, I'm seeing a lady who appears to be the reincarnation of Charlotte Bronte, the great English writer.
Oh,
So
wow.
now this doesn't happen all the time, though. I always do say that, Anne-Marie, this is very rare. But of course, sooner or later, these famous people are going to reincarnate here on Earth. So, yeah, but it hardly ever happens. But the first book was called Famous Past Lives, and it's about this phenomenon.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Well, the theme of my podcast is Heal Your Mind and Heal the World. Because according, in my perspective, and this was something that you could say was downloaded to me, I believe that the only thing we really can control is our own minds. That's the only thing. No politics, no outside person. You can't control a spouse. You can only control yourself. And so if you heal yourself and if you raise your own frequency, if you raise your own vibration, because of our connectivity, you also raise the vibration of everything around you and literally shift your entire existence. And I've experienced it with my own hypnotherapy. My first question would be around that theme. Was there ever a time in your life where you needed to heal your mind? And could you share that?
Oh, I still am. I mean, I still have regular therapy sessions, and it's done me a lot of good. So, yeah, I mean, I've been, for me, I believe in walking my talk. I mean, the standard, I know it's a cliche, but the standard psychologist and psychiatrist, they've rarely had real therapy on themselves. And not that I'm a wounded healer because, but I've got baggage as anybody else has. So nowadays I still have regular regression sessions with a colleague. We swap sessions with each other. My healing path began really with my spiritual path initially years ago when I became a Buddhist for many years and was practicing Buddhism. And then I trained in Native American shamanism and so started to practice shamanism. My spiritual path nowadays, I just call it non-duality, which is oneness, and that everything is. And one of my, so I'm still working on myself in as many ways as I can. I read Past Life Regression I had just recently was well, it was a strange one actually, because my mum died last year, and I was in the States when she died. She'd been ill for quite a long time. And so I think I was carrying some guilt that I wasn't there when she died back here in the UK. And I decided that, and the night before I was going to have a therapy session with my colleague, my partner and I, we went for a Thai meal in West Palm Beach, and came away from the meal, and my chest suddenly became very tight and wheezy. And I thought, that's really odd. Have I eaten something that's affected me? But I'd eaten nothing different. But the next morning was my regression session, and I was working on the guilt I was feeling about my mum's death and not being there for her. I went into a past life where I died of the plague, probably in medieval England. And what was worse is that I brought the plague home, and my wife and child also died of the plague. Therefore, I'd killed them. I'd brought the plague home. And then I realized that my wife in the past life was my mom in this lifetime. Because as we know, we change roles many, many times with our close souls who are close to us. And that released a lot of the guilt that I was feeling. And also a lot of that wheeziness just went away the same day. So, because we sometimes find in the days leading up to a regression session, for some clients, symptoms start to appear from nowhere, which are actually going to come out in the regression session. It's as though the subconscious is already tuning in to the regression session. So, yeah, I'm a great believer. I believe we've all got work to do. In fact, one of my soapboxes nowadays, I'll be honest, is, as you've just said, when we heal, the world heals in some way. So the more therapy a person has, the more balanced they become. And the more balanced a person is, then their balanced energy just goes out into the world. And one of the most wonderful things about good therapy is that a person becomes less reactive. And you know, most people are reacting all the time to stuff. We get triggered, as we say in the therapy world, and we react to that stuff. Well, the more therapy, the more good therapy a person has, instead of being reactive like this, they start to react more like that. So it's softened. And then the more work we do on ourselves, the more calm we are, the more at peace we are with ourselves. And being at peace is an extraordinary place to be. That, for me, is the definition of enlightenment, I think, is when what a person is just completely at peace inside, non-reactive. And that is something I think that we can strive for as human beings, for ourselves, and for the collective. Because, as you quite rightly say, my opinion is, as we heal, our vibrations change, the world changes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that about yourself. And yes, we are so in alignment, I have to say. I also practice oneness through A Course in Miracles and the Law of One, which is my extraterrestrial family, the Blue Avians as well, part of that collective as well. I always say it's not so much what happens to us, but it's how we react to what happens to us that is really what's important, because that reality is merely form. It's just something that we need to work on within us. And even as just recently, I went through a big health situation that knocked me out for a couple of years. And that's why I'm back doing these podcasts, and I feel like I'm human again. I feel like I have energy again. And it's not that life and things don't happen to you anymore. The difference is now is that your reaction to them is so much more calm. You don't believe you're a victim. In the Course in Miracles, we're not a victim of this world that we see. This world does not create us into victims. Okay, we are the creators of our world. So boy, that is just so wonderful. Thank you for being with us. I could talk to you for like 3 more hours because I just want to pick your brain about so many different things, but I will respect your time. But Steve, where can people find you if they want to hear more about you, read your books?
Okay.
Where can they find you?
Well, my website, steveburgesshypnosis.com. Most things are on there. My YouTube channel is Hypno for All, HYPNO, the number 4ALL. And what I like people to do on the Hypno for All, there are quite a few interviews that I've done with my team members about specific aspects of regression, but also on there are 26 free hypnotherapy recordings. And these are for people just to use for free. It's my way of giving back to the world. I've been so lucky with my career. So because not everybody can afford therapy. So this is a way for people to experience hypnotherapy. It's not going to cost anything. It's not regression, but it can help people with anxieties, irritable bowel syndrome, giving birth more easily, stopping smoking, losing weight. There's a lot of recordings on there. So I often say to people, go on there and explore hypnotherapy for free, and hopefully some healings will occur as well as a result of listening regularly to the recordings. My books are available on Amazon. 2 of them are also audiobooks. That's The Power of Past Life Regression, Famous Past Lives. And my new book, I'm going to start recording it soon. That was published last year, called The Adventures of the Hypnotherapist. And I've tried to give a broad picture of the work that I've done over the years, and also include some funny stuff as well, because there's some funny things have happened over the years. As you know, when you work as a therapist, working with the public, there's always going to be the odd quirky thing that happens. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the book, getting wonderful reviews for it. And my Facebook is The Power of Past Life Regression. I am on Instagram.
Excellent.
I think it's at Steve Burgess Hypnotherapy, but I don't understand Instagram at all. My partner sorts it all out for me. I'm just a dinosaur.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I do want to actually, while you were talking, this is something I did want to discuss with you. And because I have been listening to your hypnotic programming on your YouTube channel, which is first class and first rate. And I just want to thank you for doing that. I have noticed that there is a lot of AI generated hypnotic things on the internet. And I made a comment on a Reddit post. I'm like, unless it's by a legit trained hypnotherapist, don't even listen to it. Even the frequencies. It's like I have just this distrust over it. What are your thoughts on the automation of this, of meditation, of all of that? I hope you understand what my point is. What are your thoughts on that?
I do have a very jaundiced view on AI. I don't use it myself. First of all, because I understand environmentally it's detrimental to the environment. I understand that these AI, whatever they are, units use millions of gallons of water to cool them down, water which should be used in local communities. So I think that's one reason for not using them. Secondly, from a therapy perspective, as a therapist, I believe they take away from our creativity. Thirdly, ultimately, my belief is that they are part of the agenda to transhumanize us. So this is a way of getting us more and more used to not thinking for ourselves, to relying on computers, on robots, on AI, so that at some stage they'll want to merge us with AI or with computers. And if you listen to Greg Braden talking about this, he talks a lot. This will make us lose our humanity, and I'm very much against that. So for me, as a therapist, I won't use AI. From the perspective as a client, I'm not happy with it, and because I think it doesn't have that human touch. It feels too robotic, and energetically, I'm not sure it's clean. I'm not sure it is at a higher vibrational level. So, okay, fair enough. If somebody is going through a really bad patch, they can't afford therapy, maybe have it as a last resort. But I would say don't become reliant on it. So I'm not convinced by it. And I've seen bits on the internet about, psychotherapy via AI. So much of what we do is we're picking up stuff on a human level energetically when we're watching our clients, when we're connecting with our clients. And I don't think a machine can do that in any way, shape, or form. There are times in a therapy session where the therapist will suddenly pick something up and you share it with the client and it opens the therapy process up completely. Again, I don't think a machine can do that. So I have a jaundiced view of it. Again, as I say, I am a dinosaur when it comes to these things, but I do firmly believe that we need that human touch in therapy sessions. Yes, I'm totally in agreement with you, Anne-Marie. Totally.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it is something that is in our reality. It's something that's there. But I believe we ultimately are the ones who should be commanding it what to do, not it telling us what to do.
Good point.
And
Yeah.
I actually had, I said I do these StarSeed sessions, and one of my clients connected with her Arcturian family. And I asked them this very question: what do you think about AI? And what do you think? Because there's controversy on this planet, because I feel the same way that you do. I'm like, stay back, okay, translate my voice memo. That's one thing, but, don't implant thoughts into my mind. I don't want that. So what this being said, this Arcturian said, was that it's going to free you up to be joyful, to do things, take over the mundane so that you can do what you truly desire. And I believe that's the ultimate. That would be in quote unquote the perfect world, okay? But that we're not in that perfect world. We have over controllers that are feeding us this stuff in order to manipulate us. Even that's my 2 cents. I'm just removing the tinfoil hat now. I will take it off, but I believe it's, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Well, okay. Thank you so very much. Boy, I would love to learn from you more and more. I did learn about the ideomotor technique, but I'm really encouraged to use it much more in my practice now that I know about your work and the gifts and the tools that it gives. And so again, thank you for being here. I will put all of your links below in this in the video. And I just look forward to reading your books and what beautiful things you have to give to the world.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Anne-Marie. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Much love to you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And to everybody else who is out there, again, my name is Anne-Marie Morales. I am a certified transpersonal hypnotherapist and intuitive energy healer. You can find me at ammhypnotherapy.com. And thanks for sticking around. Bye.